Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Joffrey Noodle Legs with another sort of like week of great horror movies. We're looking at the Amicus films, the anthology films. Now, Amicus were a company that were run by a couple of American sort of like film producers here in England, and they ran their company the same time as Hammer. So these were the Hammer's sort of competition, and they were amazing. It didn't make as many films as the Hammer films, but what they did make was fantastic, and they had a habit of making anthologies. Now, anthologies are a sort of a nice little comfortable book, if you like, of short stories. So these were films of like short stories piled together. And tonight's one we're looking at is full of like horror in the sense of killer plants and cursed houses and all this sort of like a wonderful, amazing storytelling. So we are looking at the first one this week is Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. Now, this is an amazing film, and it's don't be fooled by it being a PG, because it still packs a little punch, which is great. And this edition is fantastic. It comes with a poster, which is really cool. I really like the poster. I'm very tempted to put that up. Very cool. And the other side's got the same poster, but without the Dr. Terror's House of Horrors written on the bottom. I am quite tempted to put that up on that wall there. We'll see. But anyway, yes. Now this is an anthology, and it also contains a really nice little booklet. Not a really big booklet, but it's still really nice. This sort of booklet goes through a little bit of like storytelling about the film's release and different sort of posters and pictures and stuff from the films, and really cool stuff, really good. And this is being released by a company called Fabulous. I don't think I own anything by them, but this is not a bad little release, to be honest. And it's one of those films that has a real strong British cast, and it's like amazing cast, to be honest, and quite a few of them are from Hammer films. We have Roy Castle starring in the film. This is like an array of sort of like British actors. A very young Donald Sutherland, and we have a Christopher Lee in the film. And we have our Dr. Terror, who is played by Peter Cushing. Now, this is all these wonderful stories, and how these gentlemen sort of get together. It's on a train trip, and it's all based on a train. They're all in the same cabin in this train. Now, trains years ago had cabins where you'd have like enough for 6 people to sit in it, and this is like near the end of the steam sort of time in the 60s and stuff like that. Steam was still about then, you see, and I think this was filmed with that sort of period in mind. But we take these wonderful stories and trips now, and it's like Peter Cushing, Dr. Terror. He's this doctor, and he's a doctor of like fortune sort of telling and spiritualism and things like this. And Christopher Lee, who plays this businessman, is very this all hogwash sort of thing, and doesn't believe anything that's going on. But all the other men in this cabin on the train, all sort of believe in what he's saying, because he's got this very striking charisma about him that draws you to him, like, you know, like the old man at the campfire telling the story, sort of charisma about him, and they're all sort of drawn to him, and he tells them about that he can tell people sort of things that are going to happen in the future, where if they tap on the card 3 times, he will lay out 4 cards which will tell them what's going to happen in the future, and then they will run out one other card which will give them the ability to maybe change something in that future. And so they all want to have their fortune done. So we go through all these wonderful stories by these different characters in the film. There's about 5 sort of stories in this film, and they're all about sort of like 10, 15 minutes long, the stories, but you know, and they're really, really all different, but all very cool. We have one. The first sort of story is based on the guy's an architect, and he's going to this house to help this the woman, and his family used to live there years ago, apparently, and he's going there because this woman wants a wall knocked down to make like a huge sort of like big room, and he goes down to and all the sort of staff that work there are all a bit sort of like don't want him to dig too deep into the house, but he goes into the cellar and he finds this hidden almost like coffin and sort of thing of a curse that he uncovers of in the house before anything could be done, and this story sort of like follows him down this curse and all this kind of thing. And in another story, there's like this family come back from holiday and all this plant that's growing up on their house sort of thing. These are really quite intriguing sort of stories. They're really, really cool. And they're all so different, but also really cool. And after the story, after the sort of like the macabre bending of each story, it goes back to the train. And then all these people are starting to get worried and stressed out. God, you know, is this really going to happen? And again, Christopher Lee is it's all hogwash, you know, don't believe all this sort of thing that's going on. So he works his way through all the people on the carriage, Roy Castle and some other sort of like actors that are in there. And so we get all these amazing, amazing stories. So, is Christopher Lee, though, is he going to give in and have his story told after he's seen all these ones being told? Is he going to give into it? You need to watch it and find out, because I'm not going to tell you the sort of plots of all the stories. We will be looking at some other anthologies this week, and I'll tell you what they are in a moment, but let's just carry on with this one. What do I think of Dr. Terror's House of Horrors? I think it's an amazing horror film. It's really, really cool because it's about the storytelling and the characters, and the acting is superb. This is what this is about. This is why it doesn't really matter that this is only a PG. Yes, it doesn't contain any gore or anything like that, but it doesn't need to, because the stories are horrible as they are, in the sense of, like, you know, these are just normal folk doing their normal business, work or holidays or family time, and all these sort of things are happening to them, and they all have consequences and fates, and they all have an option to maybe try and change that fate. And so it follows you, the whole train journey follows you on these horrible tales of macabre and of curses and of, you know, killer dogs and all this kind of thing. It's a great package of stories. And if you like your horror films where it's not all like one big long story, you like little short bursts, these are perfect for you. If you like little films like that have short stories into it. And this is a great one to start the week off with, because it's not, like I say, it's not too scary, but it's still quite horrible tales, you know, and that's what I like about it. And they're very, very British. And that's another thing I love about these films, because they are set of their times, you know, with the clothes, the costumes, and the you know, the train station and the train. It's all of its time, and you just think, wow, yeah, this was when life was good. You know, in Britain, this is when the railway was good, um, and people were nice. They were nice. They communicated. They didn't have mobile phones. They didn't have um, game consoles. You know, they actually sat and spoke. And this is the sort of thing that, you know, and I love that, because it brings back the genuine source of human communication, and that's what I think Amicus is really good at doing. Is because all their films are about communication, and they're about people telling stories, and these little stories all plotting together, and sometimes there's a connection between all the stories, um, and they all have consequences. So that's the key of Amicus films. Now, the pluses of this edition: the transfer looks really cool. Now, this company Fabulous have done a really good job of of releasing this, and I've never heard of Fabulous before. But yeah, they've done a really good job of putting it together. And this edition is really good. It's got some interviews on here. It's got a documentary called The House of Cards. It's got like some gallery original theatre. It's got the double-sided poster, and it's got the booklet. So it's a really cool edition, really nice. The acting is absolutely stellar. It's brilliant. Amazing cast. They've obviously stolen a lot of Hammer stars, but these are actors, and at the end of the day, then I think back in that time they were contracted to Hammer, but obviously these contractors, because they were probably a little bit looser, so you could probably have a bit of flexibility. And if a story really appealed to you, you're going to want to act in it, because it's for your career and stuff. And the Peter Cushing character really reminds me of him in his character that he played in another Amicus film called From Beyond the Grave, which we'll review another week, as he plays an old antique shop owner in that one. And his character I found was quite similar. But I like that. It's really cool. Negatives, yeah, I would love it to have been have some sort of gore into the film, because I think that gives it a little bit more punch, if you know what I mean. Because it lacks that punch, that's all. But as for storytelling, it's as good as any other sort of amazing sort of anthology sort of film. So I'm going to score the film of Dr. Terror's House of Horrors an excellent watch, and give it an 8 out of 10, which I think is a really cool score for quite an old movie now. It's been out a number of years, and it's like, but and it gets a really good score because of the cast more than anything else. I think the cast make the film absolutely amazing. Say, because we're full of like amazing sort of characters, and it's just such a nice, really cool set. 8 out of 10. Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. And have you guys seen it? If you have, let me know down below what you think of it. I do love these Amicus films, because sometimes when you get a chain of short stories, it's sometimes nicer to watch than it is watching a full-length film with one story. And because sometimes in these anthologies they sort of have some sort of connection, that's another really cool thing. Not all of them, but some of them do, and it's great. It's a bit like the TV series, the Hammer House of Horrors, which I will look at. I'm planning on doing a few episodes of those reviews for you guys. But it's that short burst of horror sometimes is more terrifying than a full-length film, because in these sort of films you don't get the character building as much as a full-length film, but you do, in the sense of like the way it's set out and the characters are so obvious. you can tell what they're like. Like Roy Castle in this is quite clumsy and comedic, so you know he's going to be generally a nice guy. You know, Peter Cushing, you know he's going to be a conservative, stuck up, sort of like sort of a businessman, and so you do get to you do pick that up, and because they're really good actors, you don't need like a whole film to get their character build up, because they can express it by the way they act in their scripts. It's such a cool film, really good. So that's the first film in my Amicus week, and we're going to be looking at two others. The next one we're going to be looking at is in this double bill of anthologies, and we're going to be looking at Tales from the Crypt. So we'll be looking at that one on later in the week. Vaults of Horror we will go to on another occasion. And the last film we'll be looking at this week will be Asylum, again starring the amazing Peter Cushing. Really, really cool films to come up this week, so keep your eyes out for those. But this was Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, and I absolutely love this. It's one of those films that over the years, it's got even more dearer to my heart, because it's about the storytelling and the characters, which I really liked. And you know, you feel for these guys on the train, because they're generally all right guys, but they've all got this sort of like these fates, and you feel a bit sorry for them, and you're just thinking, oh, I wish Dr. Terror didn't go into that carriage with his cards, but hey ho, he did. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Massive shout out to my lad Lemon Lord. Hope you're doing well, mate. Check out some channels for me if you get a chance. Horror Hands, The Horror Geek, Man v Film, RS Designs, Pizzlewell, I Am the Ice Lord, Cat Watches Horror Movies, and Grumpy Andrew's Haunted House. Until next time, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I see you all soon.